Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Ace, and you are watching another episode of Tuesday Night Mania. Let me introduce to you the guys we have on here tonight. That's right, it's our originals. Let's go ahead and start out with Mr. Big B. How you doing tonight, my man?
Hey, doing good. Glad to talk some wrestling. Been waiting for this episode for the past couple weeks when me and Will started throwing it out there, so can't wait for it.
Absolutely, I love this. Excited for it all week. And then, of course, we have Joe. All right, Joe, how's it going?
Good, guys. How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic. All right.
Joe.
And then, of course, let's introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. William Hudson. How's it going?
What's going on, everybody? I actually shaved for this episode. It's a big episode as far as memorial wise, and in the background you can't see it, but I have Bad Blood 97 playing, and I pulled out some materials to discuss tonight. It's a very, very important date. A lot of people, I don't think, really realize how big of a day this was and how much this impacted and changed the business at the time, especially with the health and wellness testing and stuff like that. They had health and wellness testing at the time for a lot of anabolic steroids and stuff like that, but they weren't really going after the other things that became a much issue later, which was, of course, prescribed pain and prescriptions and different things. So hopefully we can get into some of that tonight.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So welcome in. We have some great stuff we're going to hit for you tonight. So obviously the first thing that we always do to kick off is we always have the breakdown of AEW and Impact. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start out with a little AEW, but this time I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start with Big B. So Big B, between Dynamite and Rampage, go ahead and tell me what your thoughts on both of them were. What was your favorite part of them, and what was your overall thoughts?
I don't know. They're bringing CM Punk out. Is he going to be a wrestler? Is he going to be an announcer? I don't know. I know we talked about it last time. It's getting kind of boring. Overall, I still think Impact's still top dog in my eyes with the matches they're putting out. Either night, both nights, I think were pretty good. I have nothing really stood out as a match wise to me, but overall, I think it was a great product. I'm enjoying AEW each and every week. Even tune in to the YouTube channel and watch AEW Dark. I'm enjoying some of the matches there too. So,
all right, and then of course we'll go to Joe on this one. So Joe, between Dynamite and Rampage, what was your overall thoughts? What was your favorite part of it?
Dynamite and Rampage, for Dynamite, I thought it was back to being normal after weeks and weeks of explosive wrestling per se and big builds. We actually had a normal show for once, and I was actually overall impressed with it. I liked the Brody Lee tribute. I like -1 coming out there. I liked his wife coming out there. The foundation that they built, with all the proceeds going to that new foundation for him to carry on the legacy. So I thought this past week's Dynamite show was a very good show for what it was. They did a good job. No surprises this week. So overall, I gave it a 9 out of 10 on that one.
All right, so I'm going to throw this out there, Will, for you. Of course, we're going to get your thoughts on this, but I will say you kind of called this last week, Will, when you came on here and said that the Fiend would not be showing up at exactly. You came out and called it and said that he would not show up to Dynamite, and he did not show up. But now with that, what was your overall thoughts of Dynamite and Rampage?
So very good call by the writing department, very good call by the backstage department. And, I actually had a conversation with a professional wrestler who is friends with some of the people that work backstage. And I talked about, from a fan standpoint, how terrible it would be to bring him in right now with everything going on. It's too much too soon. And not that I had any influence whatsoever on what happened, but I just shared my opinion as a fan. And then I noticed that all the gossip and everything just kind of stopped. And then the next day, you didn't really hear, hey, he no-showed or anything like that. It just kind of got real quiet. Yep. So, and that's exactly what they want. And it's done by, their idea of marketing. It's a lot of this stuff, especially the dirt sheets and rumors and gossip and columns and stuff like that. They get their information from the sources that these companies want to leak the sources. It's not, they're not paying referees. They're not paying people backstage. They're not offering top talent $50 or whatever to give them a little tidbit information. So they're getting their information firsthand, and it's all by design. So when they're throwing those rumors and gossip out there, it's for entertainment purposes. It's to get you to tune into their channel or tune into their, social media accounts or whatever. Point being, a lot of fans thought, just like I did, a lot of fans thought just like you did, it's too much too fast. And now is the time to kind of relax. Now, back to the actual shows, Brody Lee, man, I'll tell you what, that guy in a short time span in that company made a massive impression. And I honestly think that his memory will live forever, because they are doing things now that WWE is behind on. WWE only has a handful of the bronze statues, or the golden statues as they call them. And I think AEW is going to take that by the reins and run with that stuff and really memorialize these folks for years and years and decades to come, because they know it's the right thing to do. Hat is off to AEW. They're doing things that they're extremely impressive. The shows this week, no, awful. They weren't creative. Decent matches, but there was nothing that made me go, oh man, this pay-per-view coming up, I'm buying that thing. Nothing like that. So, and as far as CM Punk, the most exciting news that has come out about CM Punk in the past 3 weeks now is the fact that he's headlining one of the newest AEW figures that's coming out, one of the newest series. I think it's, I want to say it's Unmatched Series 2 that's coming up. And Joe can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I want to say that's what it's called. That's the biggest CM Punk news there is. So AEW show-wise, I give them both probably a C this week. The whole thing with Brody, excellent. The whole thing with not bringing Bray, excellent. Good call.
All right, so welcome in Nicholas Burnett. He's here, so he's saying good evening. So good evening, Nick. I hope everything's well for you. And Warren is saying that AEW is booking too many big names, in my opinion. And we have talked about that before. Is we said it kind of reminds you of like a whole WCW thing, bringing in all these big names too fast. And it's like, it's time to slow down. You got to slow it down and let it gradually build over time, because that could end up being a big problem for AEW if they try and build it too fast. So that's definitely something that they need to do, is slow it down. But I am with you on the CM Punk thing. I'm really confused as to, when they brought him back, is he supposed to be a full-time wrestler? Is he going to be a commentator / wrestler? I don't know at this point, but it kind of feels like the whole CM Punk thing is kind of wearing off with people. It's not as big as it used to be because they keep bringing in all these new guys. Overall, I love the concept of the Brody Lee night. That was fantastic. I just felt like the matches could have been better, but there is one individual that I really want to touch on that I'm not really sure how I feel about him. I kind of wanted to get everybody's opinion on this guy to see what you guys thought about him. But MJF, I mean, people are really hating on this guy. A lot of his promos, like people are talking about like back in like the Attitude Era and things like that. Like this guy's cutting some promos that like cut deep to people, and people just don't like him. So, Joe, I'm going to start with you on this one. What's your thoughts of MJF?
MJF is absolutely the best heel out there, hands down. He knows exactly how to play to the crowd, and you know what he's saying is absolutely true to a lot of things like that. But I'm sure that with the things with like Pillman Jr., I'm sure those guys talked over it. Made sure that it was okay to do what he was doing, because I'm sure that if it wasn't, there would have been a big problem backstage. But he is by far the best heel out there. I absolutely enjoy him. I can't wait till he gets out there on television some weeks and just to see exactly what he's going to say, because it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But I'm sure that if it wasn't allowed, we would be hearing a lot more about it from the executives in AEW.
Oh, absolutely. But that's why I mentioned it, because there was a lot of fans who were commenting saying, how is he allowed to talk about Bruce Pritchard in AEW? And I think that was like the biggest thing, to where he's talking about like, oh, I have Bruce Pritchard in my back pocket, so if I wanted to leave, I could just make a phone call.
Well, yeah, and then if you see on commentary with CM Punk, he said the same thing. He says, well, everybody has Bruce Pritchard in their pocket. So
Right, yeah. So really quick, welcome in Dave Esparza. What's up, man? And he's saying he agrees with Warren, and Dave's saying he's in the wrong company. It would be bigger if he wouldn't have signed with the E. And then Warren saying that Daniel needs to be the main guy. MJF is the definition of a true heel. So Warren is agreeing with you on that one. Welcome in Dan Gleason, and then Jemias. Yes, the chat is working tonight. And then Jemias is also saying, have no fear, your TRC cult of personalities here. So welcome in, Jemias. So, Will, I was going to ask you about that. MJF, what do you think?
So if they write a book called Butts in the Seats #2, it's going to be all about MJF, because everybody wants to see MJF take a whooping. So you talk about a heel playing the role the way they're supposed to play it. You guys, I'm telling you, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. That's how you write a heel role. People are paying, and if you notice, I don't know how many people notice this, but the AEW ticket prices are up and up and up, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, CM Punk's there, so ticket prices are up." It's not just CM Punk. People are paying to go see these matches in person, and they're paying for this stuff because they want to see stuff like MJF. Who will MJF feud with next? This guy's a future multi-time world champion, and his figures are sought after. His autographs are sought after. This guy, he's money. He's a money maker, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did have Bruce Pritchard in his back pocket. And one minor little thing, I'll talk for about 20 seconds about this, is over the weekend in Las Vegas, there was a major convention called Unicon in Las Vegas. It drew 100,000 people or whatever it was that was there, and there was an independent wrestler, Ring of Honor. I'm not going to name his name, but he brought up this point. There is no forbidden door anymore in wrestling. There's no, we can't talk about this or we can't talk about that. Not talking about other shows and other companies and things like that was forbidden for a long time, because nobody wanted anybody to turn the channel. Today's fan knows there's another channel. They know there's another show, and people do talk about other shows and other wrestlers and other companies. And this independent wrestler out in Las Vegas made that point. There's no forbidden door anymore. You're not going to see Roman Reigns pop up on the AEW television show, but you're not going to have people afraid to mention other companies anymore. And that's why he mentions Bruce Pritchard. But plus, it's a level of respect. He's probably been watching Bruce Pritchard for 25 years, or at least his product, with Bruce working backstage.
All right, so we have a few comments that came up here. So Jemias is saying, I think MJF is a heel of Flair caliber, so he's really high on MJF. Randy Cox is here, so he's saying, what's up, guys? Dragon Viper's here. Dan Gleason is saying MJF is the DX HBK of his generation. Jemias is also saying, however, with as good as he is at playing heel, he really wonders if he's naturally a D-bag or if he has to practice at it. So that's actually, and so we actually have a question from David Esparza. He's actually saying, what do you guys think of Jim Cornette saying Moxley is a joke and can't even put on a decent match with jobbers? So Big B, I'll ask you this one first, since I went to Will and Joe last time.
Well, Cornette's been around the business forever. As a fan, I think he's wrong. I think Moxley's a heck of a talent, but again, he's ran his own promotion. He's been manager. He's been tied to probably every promotion there's been. Uh, I don't know. I guess he knows what he's talking about, but as a fan, I think he's wrong.
All right, Will, what do you think?
It's a work. It's just a work. Cornette gets his name attached to it, and Cornette is basically the leading guy on the dark side, which is a huge show, drawing in a lot of fans to watch. It's a work. The guy makes money when his name is printed, you know. So if I sit here and I say, you know what, guys, Moxley sucks. He's loses to jobbers, can't carry a good match, blah blah. It doesn't matter. But when Jim Cornette says it, people are like, whoa, Jim Cornette said that. What's going on with Jim Cornette? We need to find out more. Wait a minute, Jim Cornette's on Dark Side of the Ring. What's this show all about? Let me watch this. Now I got you, hook, line, and sinker. Or I'm on the social media of Jim Cornette. Anything he attaches his name to, it's a work. If Jim Cornette was backstage at AEW and saw Moxley, he's not going to say that to him. Guaranteed.
All right, Joe, what do you think?
I will pull out the best MJF line to say that Cornette is senile. That him and his girlfriend / wife need to worry about all those complaints that came against him all those years ago about being dirty and nasty to all the wrestlers down there in OVW. So Cornette just needs to stick to what he's doing and leave everybody alone.
So we have a lot of people who basically were leaving comments about Jim Cornette and basically saying that, there was a few of them that said he kind of reminds you of that old man that would yell at you to say, get off my lawn and and just that he's bitter. But Will, I kind of agree with you. It's probably just a work but it's supposed to draw in ratings, and I kind of see where you're going with that. So that is one thing that I can truly agree with. But now we can jump off the topic of AEW and jump to Impact quick. So now we talk about Impact. And Joe, I'm going to start with you. What was your overall thoughts on Impact this week?
Bro, I fast forward through Impact this week. I DVR'd it. I can't even tell you what happened other than Sammy getting out till next year with his ankle injury. Other than that, I can't tell you. And it's unfortunate because I like Impact, but just there's nothing there right now that's drawing me other than Christian Cage, and we already know where that's going, him and Josh at Bound for Glory. But other than that, yeah, I kind of caught glimpses and pieces of it, but I fast forward to the majority of it.
Did you happen to see the end though when Morrissey? Well, actually, it was Moose that technically attacked Eddie Edwards and kind of tried to take him out, but it was Morrissey. So Morrissey and Moose right now, I'm saying like they're two gigantic heels in Impact. That's really what they're trying to make.
I love Morrissey in there. I think that's the best place for him. He loves being there. Big Kaz, yeah. I got that figure by the way too. That's awesome. But I think that's the best place for him. He loves it there right now, and he's doing a heck of a job. And like you said, he's probably one of the biggest monster heels in there right now.
Yep.
All right, so I want to say welcome in Lou, welcome in Kevin, and then welcome in Amy. She's also here, and Robert. Okay, so
I'll throw in one more thing about that too.
Right.
I'm sorry. I think they set up a match for Bound for Glory with Morrissey and Moose against Eddie Edwards and the mystery partner, and I can almost say that that's where Braun comes in to play at.
Yeah, because I was actually talking with a few people the other day saying, who is going to be that partner for Eddie Edwards? And the only thing I could think of is this is where Braun could debut as Eddie Edwards' partner.
Perfect
I don't know
place
yet,
for him.
but absolutely. All right, Will, what do you think of Impact?
Two things in Impact that are humongous, that are not getting the attention they deserve from the wrestling world and the fans. Number one, Morrissey's future world champion, no doubt. That guy is in there. He's honing his craft. He's obviously got his backstage issues fixed. He's got his mind right. I actually saw Morrissey back in Jacksonville at the hotel we were at, and had a little quick conversation with him. And then I saw him again the next day. He was doing an appearance there, and the guy is focused. The guy is driven. He looks incredible shape-wise. and the guy's a future world champion. That guy is going to go there. He's going to dominate. He's going to really hone his craft. He's going to move on. Number 2, Braun Strowman. No doubt in my mind, Braun is going there. Then Braun will do like the leak over, like we talked about with AEW. The guy's smart. The guy's got people that are smart around him. The guy's going to make some money. You know, he doesn't have to work a horrendous 300-day schedule, and he's going to make some money. That's all there is to it. Part 2B, I'll say this. Divas. Women wrestling is humongous in Impact, and with Mickie James there, you're going to end up seeing an all-women's wrestling show, no doubt in my mind. Whether it's a pay-per-view, whether it's a TV hour a week or 2 hours a week or whatever it is, the future of women's wrestling becoming its own television show with a following, with ratings that compete with major shows, it's coming.
All right, so Jemai saying, how did Christopher Daniels do? I missed it. And if I do remember right, Christopher Daniels, didn't he win this week? I think he was in a match. Yeah, and I think he won. Yeah. I was trying to remember right. But yeah, Christopher Daniels won this week. And he's saying he loves Kaz, but he's saying, please don't bring back Enzo. I don't know. I thought Enzo was actually pretty funny. I liked him, but
he's got too much baggage.
Them two are a pair.
Yeah,
it's hard, one, not the other.
And then Ray is saying the Titan, and then Jemai saying only problem I have with Cass is he always looks like he wet his pants. And so Big B, what was your thoughts of Impact?
I just was able to catch some clips and read up on it. I think Will probably tunes into it, probably set it to a T. You know, Joe kind of fast forwarded, so I kind of just read up on it. But, you know, I'm with it. I think Morrissey or Cass, however you want to call him, dude's ripped. I think he put everything behind him. And, yeah, I think he's definitely on a fast train to becoming world champion there, or, you know, jump to another promotion and become world champ.
So can I make this point real quick,
Yep.
Big B? So the last photo you ever saw when Big Cass was just leaving WWE and all the controversy was going on was him sitting on some sidewalk somewhere. I don't even think he had a shirt on, and he looked like the end of his life was near. Right?
No, I know what photo you're talking about.
And you turn around and you fast forward 18 months. I mean, the guy looks like a world champion. That guy there with the right package, with the right writing, man, that dude, that guy's a world champion, no doubt.
Yeah, and then, you know, as well stated too, women's wrestling down there is huge. I mean, they've had the intergender match. I think they had a woman hold the Impact title for a little bit. So I'm with Will. I think we have a women's wrestling hour or two from Impact. You know, let's go with, you know, call it Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling 2.0. I don't care.
Well, they are talking about women's of wrestling coming back with Tessa Blanchard attached to it. That was the rumor as of yesterday.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Big B. I do believe that the diva you're actually talking about, I do believe it was actually Tessa Blanchard who actually held the Impact Championship at one point.
No.
And so Dave is saying you could bring back Enzo, but you don't have to have him in the ring. So you could almost make him like a manager type to Morrissey, which I don't think. Yeah, I mean, why not? You had Leo Rush as a hype man for Bobby Lashley, so you know why not? It might work, but the one thing that we're here for tonight, so we're going to get to, because it is Pillman's anniversary, and I know everybody's been looking forward to this all night. And Will, I know you actually had quite a bit to say on this, because this was near and dear to you. This was something that you really look forward to. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start out with you on this, because we're talking about the dark side of the ring for Brian Pillman and a few other things. So Will, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of intertwine my history lesson right in with that. So first of all, like I said at the beginning of the show, in the background, I have Bad Blood 97 playing in the background. What a shocker, you know. I was 14 years old when this happened, and I remember watching the Free For All, which was what used to be called the preview show for the big events. And back then when you watched the pay-per-view, it was a big event and you watched it and you watched every minute of it. And I remember Vince coming out backstage and saying that, Brian Pillman had passed away and, just looked in total shock. Well, if you fast forward a little bit and you start watching that event after the first match, or actually before the first match, Vince mentions it again. Then after that match, Vince mentions it again, like, he's still in shock that this has happened. And the WWE, WWF back then, the merchandising piece of the WWE was so far ahead with things like the magazines and stuff like that, because the internet wasn't nowhere nearly as big, that the only thing they really waited on to put together their magazines and send them to print was a few pictures from events and stuff like that. So if you look at like the November issue of WWE magazine or WWF magazine back then, or the December issue, there really isn't very much going on in there. So you got to go all the way to the January 98 magazine, which actually would have came out in December of 97, to find, some articles and some information on the Pillman, incident and stuff like that. And of course, by then they had, a lot more information. They knew what happened and they had a better clue of all that. So, but you talk about, a young man, 35 years old, absolutely, an awful tragedy. Some good things came from that, as far as the testing, as far as, prescription painkillers, because at that time, everything was all about, you're only 4 years past the major 1990s WWF steroid scandal. So what came from that was the testings for antidepressants, the testings for barbiturates, the testings for other things that were going on with these guys. It was bad enough when you had guys that couldn't make their show or could barely make their show because they drank too much. But then when prescription pills around probably mid to late 93 became a big deal, it started becoming more acceptable. But on the management side of it, it was more, what do you do? The guys have a prescription. And I think Jim Ross covered this pretty well, too, when he was talking in the Dark Side of the Ring about the plane ride from hell. What do you do? The guys have a prescription. What are you going to say? You're a major sports entertainment company, but you're a sports company, and they have a prescription. How are you going to speak against a doctor when a doctor says they need this stuff? And, of course, the guys have a prescription, but they're getting stuff, from this guy and that guy and everybody else, and they're in bars and, they're drinking and they're taking stuff. And, Pillman had been in Minnesota that night, and he had wrestled. He had participated in the card, and you were going to see this big feud was going to end at Bad Blood 97 with Dustin over Marlena, and, just some great stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, just like that, it was over, and it was terrible. Some other good things that came out of it for the next couple of years. A lot of people don't know there were some memorial tournaments that were held by some independent wrestling companies. WCW was involved. Ric Flair was involved. Somebody, Eric Bischoff behind the scenes was involved. Tony Schiavone was involved. There was a lot of people behind the scenes that were involved in this, and they were able to contribute a lot of financial support to the Pillman family. And from what I understood and what I read, they contributed a whole lot more financially to the Pillman family than WWF ever did after that. I mean, Joe Kuntz, you may know better than me. I may be wrong. But from what I understood, especially during that time and looking back on it, WCW really stepped up behind the scenes and did different things and really took care of that family where WWF did not. So those were some good things that came out of that. The guy had a great, tremendous, lasting legacy. When you watch the episode, they talk about the things he went through in his life. They talk about how he had so many surgeries that, it really impacted how he talked and things like that. He always tried to hide that in his character. He didn't want people to know that he had that disability or that impairment. So he would try to hide that. And he would always try to go more and more and more extreme, so you would buy into that character. And that was a big part of that episode. So
All right, Joe, we're going to turn this over to you because he did ask you a question about that. So you can answer that and then go into your thoughts on Brian Pillman and Dark Side of the Ring and all that.
I love Brian Pillman. You know, I was just looking back here on some of his accomplishments and things like that. That's why I was looking up at the screen, and it's hard to believe. I just turned 41. He was 35 years old when he passed away.
Yeah.
In the prime of his career. I mean, look how many superstars nowadays are just hitting their peak at 35. You know, um, he was a father to 6 kids. One of his daughters, I was just reading about here, and I'm trying to find more information on her. She passed away. She went by the name Sexy Lexi Pillman on November 26th of 2009 from a injury sustained in an automobile accident. She was only 26 years old.
Yeah.
You know, WCW took care, like Will said, took care of the Pillman family. They did 3 Pillman memorial shows. They were part of Heartland Wrestling Association. You can get the DVDs. In fact, they just re-released them again with um, more content on there. Some of the matches on there was like they did a Chris Benoit versus William Regal match that absolutely people say is probably one of the best matches out there. That are just straight technician match and scientific wrestling, things like that. A lot of guys put everything that they had together on that show. You've seen guys from WWE come in there. Like I said, WCW was there. That was probably one of the only times where you've seen 2 major companies come together for one person like that at that time. And some of those guys got signed from based upon what happened in there. But I mean, I can go on all day long about Pillman. I absolutely loved him. I remember watching him in, I believe it was 1989, 1990 on WCW. Ric Flair at that time, I think he was a kind of good guy, kind of a bad guy. It was WCW main event on Sunday nights. Him and Brian Pillman were friends on TV. Pillman came out and challenged Flair to a match, and him and Pillman had probably a 30 or 40-minute match on WCW television, which was unheard of at that time because usually it was, as we know, 98% jobber matches, and you had that one good quality match that would hook you in until next week's show. And I remember I always wanted his action figure. I could never find the WCW Galoob one. I had the WCW bendable ones back in the day. And now I got all his like loose cannon action figures and things like that. I got his DVDs. A tremendous, tremendous talent gone way too soon. I always think about sometimes what he would be doing now if he was alive, and all those problems that he had with the Humvee accident. What would have happened if not? I think he would have been a major player in the WWE with that loose cannon gimmick. I don't know if he would have been world champion, but I guarantee he probably would have been right there in the hunt. Maybe that guy always chasing it, just never getting it. And who knows? Maybe Vince might have had a soft spot for him and finally gave it to him. But just the things that he could have done in the WWE, him and Austin, the 316 character, the loose cannon character, maybe the gun feud would have went a little bit better, bearing that no injuries was going on with Pillman at the time. To be able to see what he would be doing now with his son in the wrestling business, Pillman probably would still be wrestling a little bit, maybe doing backstage, helping the talent. It's just unfortunate what happened, and to have an underlying heart issue and didn't know about it because technology wasn't as good as it was. Same thing with Eddie Guerrero. Just we lost so many great guys because of those underlying conditions, and the wrestling business has changed for the better because of those things. Because those guys, like you said, they were on the road 300 days a year. You had to self-medicate to get up in the morning. You had to self-medicate to go to bed at nighttime. You had to self-medicate to spend time with your family because you only had a day or two at home. You know, so thank goodness the business has got better and it's changed. But it's unfortunate that we've had to lose so many of those great guys to get to this point.
You ever hear Jake talk about how he had to snort coke 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
just to move, just to be able to get up and move around, because his body was so beat up and he wasn't going to give up. He wasn't going to give in, but he had to go to work no matter what. He had to get up. He had appearances he had to make. And until towards the later end of his career, you didn't really see Jake make too many mistakes. You didn't see Jake miss a lot of dates or anything like that. But you got to remember, it was all fueled by alcohol and drugs, no matter what they were. And Pillman was no exception to that. Pillman was right there in that. And unfortunately, when you have an issue that's already there, you're not aware of it, because technology, as Joe said, it's crap back then. And, you take one too many, or you take one that you weren't supposed to take, or you mix it with something else by accident, and that's it. And it's so unfortunate. And, moving forward from that, just wanted to make one point on what Joe said. There's no doubt in my mind, Pillman in April or May of '98 definitely takes that belt off of Austin, even if it's only for a day or so. And here's my theory. When WrestleMania 14 happens, Michaels is injured. They don't know until a couple weeks beforehand. They had a little pay-per-view called No Way Out '98, which was supposed to feature Michaels in a tag team with 4 people next, Austin with a tag team of 4 people as well. Michaels couldn't make the appearance because his back was hurt so bad and he was in such bad shape, and he needed that extra time to recoup for WrestleMania 14. So WrestleMania 14 happens. They know they're putting the belt on Austin. Austin takes it. Michaels, for all intents and purposes, retires and goes away. They had nobody to face. Nobody was built to face Austin. So what did they do? They take Mankind and repackage them very, very quickly in a 3-week time span. Repackage them and make them Dude Love. And for the next 2 pay-per-views in April and May of '98, they have Dude Love face Austin because they have nobody else built up fast enough. You can't put Kane in there because you got Kane and The Undertaker going at it with each other. You have nobody else built. That's when Pillman would have shined, and there would have been a humongous feud. There would have been a humongous draw. These guys are formerly the tag team champions. They're formerly the Hollywood Blondes. They've both been all over the place. They've been over to ECW. They had done some great things. I think at least by May of '98, he takes the belt, even if he only kept it for a day, because it was only 1 month after that where Kane, who is a tremendous challenger and a tremendous wrestler and a former world champion, takes the belt from Austin, even though it was only for a day at King of the Ring '98, but he still took the belt. And I think you would have saw that earlier with Pillman. And if that had happened, I think you never would have saw Kane win the world championship. And King of the Ring '98 would have been a much different card. But that's my take. Go ahead, Ace.
All right, so I got to get to a few of these comments here. So Jemias is saying, "Rip Flying Brian." And then Jemias also says, "I was at the Raw. They announced his death. It was actually my first ever Raw." And then he said he had this discussion with a friend of mine the other day and would like y'all's input. Do you think Pillman Jr. could pull off a loose cannon gimmick, or does he seem like too pure of a guy to speak? So do you guys think he could pull off a loose cannon gimmick? Big B, you're saying no.
He's a tremendous talent, and he can definitely be a tremendous heel. I don't think, out of respect for his own family, that he would ever try to impersonate that. I think his respect lies in doing it himself and making his own character. There's no doubt in my mind you're going to see him be a monster heel at some point, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere near that kind of gimmick, because I think, as far as the mother still being alive and the family that, is still involved with wrestling, I don't think anybody would say, hey, that's a great idea.
All right, so Jemias is also saying, I say he could, but my friend says he's too clean and pure for it. Jemias is also saying, Joe, you look like a guy I've seen on some E-Fed promotion. And then Jemias is also saying, hell, look what people like Christopher Daniels are doing at the age of 40, because we were talking about the older age there. Lou says that I remember his feud with Stone Cold. Has he ever spoken out about when Brian died? I believe he actually has spoken a few times about it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And Robert is saying William Regal is definitely one of my favorite technical wrestlers. Almost looks like he's going into wrestling in a form of science. Jamaisal saying, I think Hollywood Blondes had the potential to be hell of a lot bigger than they were.
100%.
Then Ray saying, Big B, you look like the animal.
I'll take that compliment every day of the week. Thanks, Ray.
Dave saying, I liked when he was a tag partner with Austin.
Yep.
Weren't they called the Hollywood Blondes?
Hollywood Blondes, yep.
Yeah, and the great thing about that team was they were just thrown together. They weren't.
Yep.
They were just thrown together because they had nothing for them, and they took a gimmick that wasn't supposed to work and made it work to the point that
did Austin say that in the Dark Side, his part of it, that wasn't it Pillman's idea that he came up to him and say, hey, we're gonna be a tag team, and every team needs a name. How about the Hollywood Blondes? And Austin's like, okay, because I have nothing better. Let's go with it.
Yeah, Pillman came up with that whole entire gimmick, the vest, the tights, everything. He says that, and that's why he wears that gold necklace still to this day, because that every Hollywood needs to have some bling bling, and the necklace was a part of the gimmick, and still holds true to this day. He always has it constantly on him.
But it was the idea to pair them.
What's that?
It wasn't? I thought it was.
Rhodes' idea to pair those two.
Okay, yeah. So right. Austin said that Pillman came in and said, "Hey, we're going to be a tag team." It wasn't his idea. Yeah. You're right.
So Rhodes said, basically, from what I understood, they got nothing for you. You guys better do something really fast, and you guys are going to be working together, because if not, you're going to be out of here.
Yeah.
So, and they both needed to do something fast, because you got to remember the Dangerous Alliance had just kind of come to a close right before that with Paul E. Yep. And he was on the bigger and better things, with ECW. So all of a sudden, Austin had to find something to do. And it was only 19 months later, Austin was unemployed, So that was a huge run for them. And especially during that time with the tag titles and WCW, there was a lot of tremendous talent there and huge talent there. And you still had, some big names that left there during that exact time period, went to WWF and became tag team champions, Tex Slazenger, and what was the other one's name, Joe? Do you remember?
Shane High Pierce
became the Godwins in WWF and became tag champs. So, there were some big names there. Vader, Ricky Steamboat, Rick Rude, so many other ones. Dustin Rhodes was there. So many other ones that, during that time period, for those guys to really spark out like that was tremendous. And hats off to those guys for sure. And definitely, Pillman's idea, Pillman's forward thinking, and Austin paying tribute is tremendous. So,
all right, Big B, we did not get your thoughts on Brian Pillman, the Dark Side of the Ring, and
I watched part 1 today, and it still to this day kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it, being that in Minnesota, and that's where he passed away at. But I think everybody said it to a T so far, that he was a tremendous athlete. He definitely would have had the world title in WWFE at least a couple times, for sure. Probably a first ballot Hall of Famer if that all happens. Today, we probably see him in the ring at least once with his boy, maybe managing him. Like Will said, behind the scenes. Definitely a tragic loss in the wrestling business. So,
yeah.
All right. So those were excellent thoughts on Brian Pillman. But there was one question that I've kind of been waiting for to ask, because, somebody mentioned Eddie Guerrero and how tragic, it was when Eddie Guerrero passed. But when you look at Brian Pillman, like, who do you think made more of an impact? Do you think it was Pillman, or do you actually believe it was Eddie Guerrero?
It was Eddie, and because so many people around the world. I'm sorry, I hope it was my turn, Ace. So many people around the world were so, just loved Eddie. Eddie was a hero to the Latino people, and WWF, Vince McMahon thought so highly of Eddie that when it happened, it was tragic. And, you had world champions out there, Batista crying his eyes out, Edge crying his eyes out, all these guys crying their eyes out because, they didn't know what to do. This guy, he was a big deal, and he did a lot behind the scenes. He did a lot of teaching. He did a lot of gimmick training. He did a lot of different things, and he touched a lot of people. The guy was a tremendous talent. At the time in '97, if you look at their roster, if you look at who was there was so much talent that had been in and out. Jeff Jarrett had been in and out of WCW and WF so many times. Owen Hart was there, but Owen Hart wanted out so bad because Brett and Davey and all those guys, were getting ready to leave, and all those things were going on. Sean and the Click had just happened right before that. Sean now had Hunter and China, and they were kind of the focus point. There wasn't a whole lot of talent that had been there for a long time with Pillman like they had been there later on with Eddie. So Eddie's impact was tremendous. It's not often, and it's sad, but it's not often today that you hear Brian Pillman's name only because of his son wrestling right now. Do you hear it so much? If he wasn't wrestling right now, I don't think anybody would have really realized today would have been the anniversary. But it's hard to turn on a SmackDown or Raw episode that you don't hear Eddie mentioned at least once.
All right, so Joe, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And it's unfortunate because two different time periods there. But WWE, like Will said, was so stacked with talent that they were coming and going. The Monday Night Wars were going on. They didn't have time to slow down and really think about it. Those guys were gone. 1 minute they're there that week, next week they're on WCW TV because of the money. So the camaraderie wasn't there. With Eddie, he came in at the time when WCW was dying. Him and Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko and who was the other one? Will, the Radicals came in.
You had Perry Saturn.
Perry Saturn,
Yeah,
yes.
Saturn, yeah.
Gosh, I can't believe I forgot Saturn. So they came in at a tough time because they were viewed as the enemy. They're there to destroy WWE. That's exactly what WCW wanted to do at the time. So those guys had to build a reputation that people could trust them. Once they started to trust them, then they got to enjoy them. Eddie, if you remember, one of his first matches did the frog splash, a normal routine he's done a million times. Landed it, broke his elbow, done.
Yeah.
Got into doing more pain pills and drinking, and they had to release him. They didn't want to, but it's either that or he's going to probably die on television. That's where they got to that point. He goes and does Ring of Honor and helps those guys out on their very first DVD show that they have out. Year One, it's called. And does a great job there to the point that WWE started looking at him again. He came back. He found God. He like Will said, he would pray and with the guys before matches, after matches. He would sit there as a veteran and critique their matches with them and help them. And he opened up a lot of eyes for the Latino community that probably wouldn't have been anywhere near where it's at now with the WWE. You had Ray, who was coming along good, but Eddie was able to build that up by beating Brock in San Francisco, which is a big Latino community out there. If you remember out there, I mean, he jumped into the crowd with a little bit of his family. I mean, the place just exploded when he became champion that night. And then he goes on to be one of the co-main events of WrestleMania 20. And regardless of Chris Benoit, one of my greatest moments as a fan was seeing those two men who busted their butt for so long to be able to embrace in the middle of the ring like that on a number one wrestling company out there at the biggest pay-per-view of the year, holding both of the championships for both of their brands respectively. So with Eddie, yeah, it's a bigger impact. Unfortunately for Pillman, it was just the wrong place, the wrong time on impact-wise. If it wasn't for Pillman Jr. now, like Will says, other than diehard wrestling fans, nobody would probably really know who Brian Pillman is right now.
Which, when you think about it, it's very, very sad. It really, yeah. Go ahead.
So not only was that the biggest pay-per-view of the year, but if you remember back in 2004, WrestleMania 20 was considered like their biggest pay-per-view of all time after WrestleMania 1, because it was where Vince wanted to recreate the company. And if you remember the promo going into that event, the promo was Vince and then Shane and then Shane's son in Vince's hands. Do you remember that, Joe? Where that was like the whole thing was where it all begins again. So it
Yeah,
was,
where it all begins again. Yep.
yeah, so it wasn't just, like their big show of the year. It was like their big show of recreating the company, and they recreated the company with guys that, a couple years earlier were just considered cruiserweights, the opening bouts, the guys that did the little flippy stuff. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden, these guys are considered world heavyweight champions. Second quick point, this one goes out to Ace. Eddie Guerrero captured that world title at No Way Out 2004 thanks to the help of Goldberg.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate you throwing the whole Goldberg thing out there.
Yes,
But a lot of people are actually agreeing with you guys on the Eddie Guerrero and the impact that Eddie made. It is unfortunate that a lot of people actually don't talk a lot about Brian Pillman. I think that he definitely deserves a lot more respect and for people to talk about him more. But Big B, would you agree with them too that Eddie Guerrero made a bigger impact than Pillman? Or
When you brought up the question, I kind of wanted to take Guerrero out of his legacy with the family because his family's a big legacy, but still, then Guerrero is still above Pillman. I mean, he had a bigger impact. Like Will said, you had the whole roster on stage when they announced it, and 70% of them were in tears, if not more. I mean, the fans were in tears. I know I was in tears. I think Lou said she was in tears. So yeah, I would say Eddie definitely made a bigger impact. I mean, brought Chavo in. All those matches, like Joe said, WrestleMania, where him and Benoit both were in the middle of the ring, holding the belt, holding each other, crying. I mean, they worked their butts out to get there. And yeah, I would say I agree with everybody. Eddie was definitely a bigger impact, a bigger loss. I mean, Pillman's a big loss too, but it's tough that we're talking about them like this, but they definitely are in my memory forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
so we have a few comments that are rolling in here. Of course, Lou has to say Goldberg. So you got her going there. And then Dave saying if there's no Eddie Good, like Daniel Bryan would never see a title run. And then
Correct.
Jemai saying no disrespect to Eddie, but you can't watch a Dominic Mysterio match without him being mentioned a dozen plus times.
Correct. That is true. Yeah.
It is very, very true. So the next thing we're going to talk about is just kind of some rumors and open forum here. So Joe, I'll start out with you on this one. Do you have any rumors or anything for us?
No, nothing that comes to mind other than what we've been hearing out there right now.
Yeah, and I believe we talked on it last week a little bit, was Brian Cage. Like, that was a main rumor that I'm hearing right now, is that
He's
Brian
very
Cage,
unhappy right now.
Yeah.
Him and his wife have been blasting Twitter right now, and I can understand where they're coming from. They've been a part of AEW since almost the beginning there, and kind of just seeing these new guys come in, and he's getting pushed down, and he's a great talent.
and,
All right.
there goes, and Joe just got pushed out. Okay, so
Yeah.
but if you guys remember, this is something that we talked about, though. We had mentioned these guys that have been with AEW for a while, they could start getting frustrated because they're kind of getting pushed down and they're not getting in the main picture anymore. And that's kind of what we see happening, because, Daniel Bryan, or not Daniel Bryan, but Bryan Danielson now, the American Dragon, he's in there. You have CM Punk is in there. Adam Cole is in there now. So a lot of these newer guys are coming in there, and now they're starting to take these top spots. And a lot of these guys that have been there forever, they're going to start getting frustrated. But
And
Joe,
I think he can have great matches with those three guys that you just mentioned right there. I really do. With Bryan Danielson, he can have a great match with. CM Punk, I think, a great match. Adam Cole, a great match with. So it'll be unfortunate, but maybe if he he might be one of the first big names for AEW to leave and go WWE bound.
He very well could. All right. Big B, do you have any rumors or anything for us?
No, I just was looking up something, and Bleacher Report is saying that fans and family members of Gable is urging him to jump ship and go to AEW, which I don't know if that makes a big difference for him. I'd like to see him go to Impact if he leaves WWE, but Cage going to WWE would be, I think, a big stepping stone back on their side. Kind of get those Monday Night Wars going again once. Because nobody from AEW has jumped ship yet. So if Cage is the first one, then we might start seeing those ratings go up again.
So Lou was saying it's rumored that William Hudson is going to challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. David Sparks saying Cage would be awesome in the E. Cage is going to be the first AEW star to jump to WWE. So, I mean, it very well could be, because there's a lot of rumors right now that saying he wants to go to the E. So I could definitely see it. And yes, Robert, Jack Hager is actually still there. He's still there, and I don't think he'll ever go back to the E. But Will, we're close to that time. But do you have any rumors for us currently?
I don't know that there's any that can't wait till next week, but I'll give you this little tidbit. It is all over the people that I talk to that the Willow character will be coming back very, very soon. And the Willow character is looking for one last world championship run before moving on to a different type of wrestling, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Interesting, because you can see the start of that last night, probably, with on Raw there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought they wanted to bring back his old music for everybody to sing along to. So, but that's how the WWE goes. They 1 minute they're going one direction, and next minute they
they don't know
turn.
Yeah. All right. So the last thing we're going to touch on really, really quick before we wrap it up is just the what if segment, because Will, you had mentioned the what if and the Rockers as tag team champs. So go ahead and kick us off with that.
Okay, so what if on Superstars, when the Rockers actually won the tag team championship from the Hart Foundation, what if that title change actually counted? Then what happens from that point on? Obviously, you still have the split at some point between Shawn and Marty, but how much bigger of a tag team and a bigger of an individual's wrestler do both of those guys become right out of the chute, having defeated the Hart Foundation? Because, Brett carrying those tag titles twice led him on to be the two-time Intercontinental Champion and really opened up doors, and not just open doors, splintered doors wide open for the little guy. Remember the little guy, 230 pounds of a WWF champion, which then opened the door, of course, for so many other guys. So instead of that tag championship not happening or change not happening, what if that happened? Does Shawn go on quicker and become world champion instead of Brett? Does Marty become multiple-time Intercontinental Champion? Does Marty become a big star? Does Marty go down the path that Shawn was on with Sherry? I mean, there's a lot of different things you have to look at. That match alone was so big for its time that I don't think people really realize how big it was. And because there was an actual real-life, true technical difficulty, it just got scrapped. And if you watch the match, those guys worked their tails off trying to make it into a match. Number 2 point, real fast, because I'll be quiet, I promise you, Ace. Number 2 point, if you want to go back and you want to touch on some of the stuff that we've covered tonight, especially, about Pillman, go on Peacock Network, go under the WWE section, watch Brian Pillman, The Loose Cannon, that documentary. That documentary was produced in 2006 by WWE. It's tremendous, absolutely tremendous. You're going to see stuff on there, and you're going to hear stuff on there, and remember stuff on there that's not covered under the dark side of the ring. Go ahead, guys.
All right. So, Joe, I'm going to go to you now. Give us a what if.
I like Will's thing on the what if there. That happened on a Saturday night's main event. The top rope broke, and I remember Brett being upset that since it was taped that they couldn't stop that match
Yes.
and go ahead and put the rope back on there and let them go at it because the Rockers were supposed to win the tag team titles that night.
Yes.
And so Brett was highly upset, and I believe Sean was too. So I like that what if. My what if is we look at, like, we're talking about family dynasties and things like that. So my what if is what would have happened if all of the Von Erich brothers, dating all the way back to David Von Erich, Big Beef's probably thinking the same thing. What would happen if they would have lived? Would a world-class championship wrestling, because it was getting big. David was supposed to be the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, which we know Kerry got it for a couple weeks, but his drug problems prevented him from a longer run. What would happen if all of them would have lived? Would we have seen wrestling change a little bit? Would world class still be around? Would the Von Erich brothers be running it? So that's my what if.
All right, Big B, it looked like he might have took yours. Anyway.
I mean, that's a good one. And yeah, I mean, talking family dynasties, I mean, yeah, what if the Von Erichs would have, not had the tragedy? And, what if, for me, I guess during the Attitude Era with WCW and Raw, the wars going on, what if WCW would have opened the garage doors when DX invaded? What would we have seen? What would have happened? I know Nash has kind of said that everybody was back there, but the powers that be didn't want the doors to open. So could we have had a little brawl on live, with WWEF and WCW? So
yes, definitely.
That would have been sweet.
Yeah,
because Bischoff said he wasn't there that night. He said if he was there, he said he would have opened the doors, because how big would it have been WCW on WWE TV and at that exact moment in time on the USA Network? The media coverage would have been unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So my final what if is actually goes out to Bray Wyatt. So it's actually a what if about Bray Wyatt. What if they don't repackage his character when he's Husky Harris? Does he become as big as he was?
No.
And I don't think he does. I don't even think he would last as long in the WWE. But we have a few other what ifs here. We have Jemai saying, what if Andre doesn't slam Hogan? Or sorry, what if Hogan doesn't slam on Andre? Would he still have had as big his name?
No, he wouldn't have. No way.
Oh, Hogan having a big name? If Hogan doesn't slam Andre wins WrestleMania 3. So,
but if Andre doesn't agree to it, we have a whole different story to talk about.
Exactly.
And then Dave is saying, what if Austin never cuts the 316 promo? Does he still become the same guy he was?
No, he needs to thank Triple H for that and the curtain call, because without that, Austin 316 would never been born.
Nope. And that's documented. So, yeah.
And then the final one we have is from Lou, which is saying, what if China stayed in WWE?
When did she leave?
She left after Triple H and Stephanie were together, and she found out about it. They didn't renew her contract.
She didn't go nowhere else to wrestle. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, she did. She showed up in Impact, but that was a horrible situation.
Oh, that's right. That was a bad one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're at that time. So I'm going to give you guys 30, 45 seconds to go ahead and wrap it up. So Big B, I'll start with you. Any final remaining thoughts?
No, I loving this show. Any chance to get to talk wrestling with those two, Joe and Will. Ace, I know me and you talk wrestling Sundays and in our private chats, but to get a chance to talk with Joe and Will and read all the comments that come in, it's a blast for me. It brings back my childhood. So I'm enjoying the show every week.
Definitely. I love it. And we want to thank Joe for joining, is definitely unexpected, but we love to have you here. And so, Joe, any final remaining thoughts?
No, great show this week. I think we could have went a lot longer, just with talking about stuff. I know we didn't get to a couple things. I know people want to hear what we have to say about the women's
Mount
Rushmore. I'm sure that we will definitely get to
Oh,
that. And our credible stories. I'm sure we have credible stories about wrestlers that we've met and talked to that we didn't get to yet.
Yep.
I know I do. I'll leave them.
Oh,
for
no, I
that,
got a
but
couple. I was looking forward to it.
living here in Florida, I get to see a lot of wrestlers, and I've seen a lot. I can tell you a story about X-Pac. I met him. Ooh, that'd be a good one. John Moxley I met. So
Nice.
so that'd be a good one. I can't wait to get to that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Next week we might start out with a few different topics at first, just so we can hit on some topics that we haven't got to hit on yet. But all right, William, you got about 30 seconds or so to go ahead and wrap up whatever else.
So I'm going to need about 45 seconds, but I want to cover a couple of things. It's going to be really, really deep. Number one, we would get a lot further into the show if Ace didn't overtalk everybody.
All right, Will.
Ace is the new Ben.
But number two, guys, the whole moral is of the story. Every single one of these things that we discussed, every single one of these episodes that we watched, all this stuff circles around one thing. It all circles around mental health awareness that didn't exist. All these guys were doing these things, and they were on these roads, and they were depressed, and they were battling depression. They were battling anxiety. They were battling all these things. And it led to a lot of this other stuff. And that's where a lot of the focus never was until, just the past few years. So that's where we've lost the whole focus is, it's all about mental health awareness, and nobody was focused on it. And if you had mental health awareness with half of these guys, half the stuff doesn't happen. The second thing is, humongous thank you to the Coast to Coast Network, to Crispy Bacon, Dragon Viper, Ace, Big B. Thanks for having us, tremendously. We really appreciate it back at Top Rope Collectibles. Huge shout out to Robert Burdick, who I partnered with today, and we covered some stuff. And, Robert was going through some magazines and stuff, and I was going through some stuff trying to figure out, how to cover that topic tonight, because it's a deep topic, and making sure that we covered enough information, but we covered, the stuff that was important, basically. So huge shout out to Robert Burdick. Thank you for that. Huge shout out to Joe. Tremendous addition to the team, tremendous addition to the show. I tell you what, guys, you guys don't know what it's like standing in Target parking lots with me and Joe. The conversations we have are just insane. So, I mean, we can go back 30 plus years talking about, wrestling. So, humongous shout out to Top Rope Collectibles. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be who I am. So thank you to all my supporters. Thank you to Thoughts Count Anywhere, Chief, Aaron Phillips, those guys over there. Tremendous guys, tremendous supporters of mine and the group as well. So huge shout out to those. All my admins, all my moderators, the teams that we've put together that support me are tremendous. And of course, the people that are watching, thank you. We enjoy it. And we just need a little bit more time because Big B talks so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Somebody just commented they want 5 hours.
They want 5 hours.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think 5 hours would be a little long, but who knows? Maybe one week we can do like a 2-hour special or something like that, just so we can do a massive special. Because it sounds like that's what the viewers want. The viewers sounds like they want more. They want more. They're asking for more. They're asking for an encore. So
they just want us to say Goldberg for 5 hours. 5 hours of Goldberg.
You know what? Viewers are growing every week.
Huh?
You notice the viewers are growing every week.
Oh, absolutely. They're growing every week. So with that, I do want to thank everybody for watching. It was another great episode. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Big B. Thank you, Crispy Bacon Backstage. You can catch us again next week for another episode of Tuesday Night Mania. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys.